the team's not quite good enough, then the manager ain't good enough.
Arteta out, come on now.
Arteta would have been a complete disaster. Arteta hasn't managed to paper back.
Like that, he is not good enough to be manager of Arsenal Football Club.
I don't think I trust the process. I don't think the other fans trust the process. I don't even think the players.
He's going to be the first manager to get the sack, I promise you.
Do you want him there? Is he the man to take you to the next level?
You'd have to say no.
Arsène Wenger's tenure at Arsenal is often looked upon as the golden era in the club's history. The Frenchman took charge in 1996 and transformed the team into one of the greatest forces in English football. Under Wenger, Arsenal won 3 Premier League titles, including the remarkable 2003-2004 season where they went undefeated, earning the nickname the Invincible. However, as the years passed, Arsenal's dominance was no longer visible. They shifted from title contenders to a team satisfied with just securing a spot in the top 4. Wenger's departure in 2018 showed just how much he had saved Arsenal as the Gunners struggled under Unai Emery. The once regular top 4 finishers found themselves unable to even qualify for European football. But ever since Arteta's appointment, a rebuild has begun to restore Arsenal to its former glory. But the fan base is still divided. From becoming Premier League title contenders to getting to the Champions League quarterfinals for the first time in decades, how are Arsenal becoming an elite club again?
But how well has he done, Arteta? Has he recaptured the spirit of Arsenal?
Appointed in 1996, Arsène Wenger transformed Arsenal Football Club. They started winning right away, setting the stage for more victories to come. Arsenal won their first Premier League title, finishing 7 points ahead of Manchester United. This was Sir Alex Ferguson's Manchester United, by the way, a dominant team in English football. I'm not talking about winning against Eric Ten Hag's Manchester United. This win began a period of success for the club. The early 2000s was a golden time for Arsenal. They won both the league and the FA Cup in the 2001-2002 season, thanks to star players like Thierry Henry and Dennis Bergkamp. Henry is a great example of how good Wenger was at developing young, talented players. Henry was not a superstar when he first joined Arsenal. The Frenchman was coming off a disappointing season at Juventus, but Wenger believed in his abilities and saw his potential. Under Wenger, Henry developed into one of the best players we have ever seen in the Premier League. The 2003-2004 season was especially memorable because Arsenal went unbeaten the whole season, earning the nickname the Invincibles. To not lose a single game in an entire league campaign is something that is almost impossible to replicate. It showed a level of dominance and brilliance that hadn't been seen before. At this time, Arsenal played really fluid football, but they were also an insanely physical team. The midfield partnership of Patrick Vieira and Gilberto Silva was scary. 2 giants that were good both defensively and going forward. In defense, they had Sol Campbell and Kolo Touré with German international goalkeeper Jens Lehmann behind them, making crucial saves. When Arsenal tied the game 2-2 against Tottenham, winning the league and sealing their unbeaten record in the stadium of their London rivals, it was a symbol of how good of a team they were. Each player understood their role and executed with precision. Right now, we are seeing Arteta try and bring back this level of physicality into the current Arsenal team, something that has been missing within Arsenal Football Club for years. Saliba and Gabriel are the most dominant center-back partnership in the world right now. They are the reason that Arsenal barely concede any goals, especially in the Premier League, where they've conceded the lowest expected goals of any team. They are both so athletic, making it very tough to beat them in 1v1 situations. And if they somehow get beat, Raya is right there at the back to clean up the mess, very similar to what Jens Lehmann used to do. The Gunners don't have a Patrick Vieira yet. It's a position that they've been trying to replicate for decades ever since he left the club, but Rice is an elite midfielder. He hit the ground running his first season and has been massive for Arsenal, especially when he plays further up the pitch. Arteta is trying to create that same essence of teamwork in the current Arsenal team, bringing together a group of talented individuals to come together to a shared goal.
The first thing, I want to embrace everybody together.
Under Wenger, Arsenal did well internationally too, making it to the UEFA Champions League final in 2006. Although they ended up losing to Barcelona, it was a massive sign of progression, as the club had never progressed past the quarterfinals of the competition before that year. They also became the first club from London to reach a Champions League final at that time. Their success set high standards for the club and made them one of the top teams in English football. Arsenal finished in either first or second place in the league in 8 of Wenger's first 9 seasons at the club, Fans hoped that this success would continue for many years to come. But that greatness was tough to maintain. After their remarkable unbeaten season in 2003-2004, Arsenal saw a notable drop in their performances and faced a period without winning any trophy. The 2024 Arsenal team is actually looking to win the club's first Premier League title since 2004. Arsenal reached the final of the 2007 and 2011 League Cup but lost both. With the performances dropping, they began to lose some of their key players. Club legend Henry signed for FC Barcelona after 8 years at the club. He claimed that the departure of Arsenal's popular vice chairman David Dean, as well as the lack of certainty around Wenger staying as manager, motivated the move. The others like Patrick Vieira, Perez, Ashley Cole, and Ljungberg were sold to begin a rebuild around the new and upcoming young talents like Cesc Fabregas.
And because of Cesc, the player that he was, he started to think that he had to build the team around Cesc Fabregas.
Former keeper Lehmann believes that this transition was too quick and that the younger players did not learn the old values of the title-winning side. On top of this, Arsenal were dealing with a stadium rebuild as they transitioned from Highbury to Emirates Stadium. As the face of Arsenal began to rapidly change, so did their ambitions as Arsenal began to be converted into a global brand. The idea behind leaving Highbury was that a new stadium would generate more commercial revenue that would then be used to fund future transfers. That was the plan, at least. But for a while after 2006, the board began to time their spending. They seemed to be happy just creeping into the top four and making some money rather than splashing a lot of investments in order to have the team actually compete for titles again.
No money. The money went into the stadium. And we were losing players every single year.
The loss in physicality was one of the most notable things to change about Arsenal. The Invincible side combined skill with character and athletic ability, but this new Arsenal side, under Wenger, only focused on skills.
Ingredients right now are not seen together.
Mikel Arteta knew that this was the problem at Arsenal and is bringing back this physicality. His Arsenal side combines the physicality with great footballing ability, just like the Invincibles did in 2004. Now, the 2011 Arsenal team wasn't that bad. They played some unbelievable football, one of their best moments coming in when they went toe-to-toe with prime Barcelona in 2011. But although their football was aesthetically pleasing on the eyes, they weren't winners. What's worse is now they began to lose star players regularly. Players knew that if they wanted to win trophies, their best chance was if they left Arsenal. Fabregas, who was at the heart of the Arsenal rebuild, left to go to Barcelona. Samir Nasri joined Manchester City and won a Premier League title.
I made the right decision.
Robin van Persie left to join rivals Manchester United right after having his best individual season at Arsenal in 2012. The next season, he won the Premier League title with United.
I had to wait for so long for my first title.
Arsenal just could not keep its best player. Arteta is now fixing this issue at Arsenal.
He connects the team and environment he creates here, I think is brilliant.
The back end of Wenger's time saw some success. Arsenal landed Mesut Ozil from Real Madrid, a club record signing. Ozil helped Arsenal defeat Hull City to lift the 2014 FA Cup, showing signs that maybe Arsenal was ready to get back to being an elite level club again. But just a few years later, Arsenal found themselves in an even lower position, finishing 5th in the league. Their first finish outside the top 4 since before Wenger joined in 1996. In 2017, they got absolutely destroyed by Bayern Munich in the Champions League, 10-2 on aggregate. A reminder that they were not even close to the big teams in world football. Then a year later, once again, Arsenal's best player left. This time it was Alexis Sanchez going to Manchester United. In his final season, Arsène Wenger finished 6th and won the Community Shield. The club was broken and a shadow of this team we saw in the early 2000s. The fans were upset and were now calling Wenger to be fired.
We want Wenger, say we want Wenger! We want Wenger, say we want.
Even when Arteta joined first, the club didn't show stability for a few months, and the Arsenal fans wanted him out as well. It's very impressive to see how Arteta has changed the way he's viewed and his position at the club.
Arteta's got to go. Everything's got to change from top to bottom. The club is just...
And it's not just Wenger. There was another manager whose mess Arteta had to clean up in order to get to where he is now. After Arsène Wenger left in 2018, Unai Emery became the manager of Arsenal. In the beginning, there was actually some hope. Arsenal went 14 games unbeaten, which was their longest run since the Invincible season. Unfortunately, Emery found it difficult to match the high standards Wenger had set. During Emery's tenure, Arsenal did not qualify for the Champions League, and their performances on the pitch declined. They were on course to finish top 4, but they bottled it, losing against Wolves, Everton, Crystal Palace, and Leicester in their last 8 games. Arsenal fans had some hope left in their system because the team had still made it to a Europa League final. But that hope was gone after Arsenal ended up losing 4-1 to Chelsea. Another low point for Arsenal fans, being dominated in a cup final by another one of their London rivals.
That blood. They got no fight, no balls, nothing.
The next season didn't get any better, especially after the Xhaka incident. Xhaka was made as the Arsenal captain by Emery, and when he was subbed off against Crystal Palace, he was booed by the Arsenal fans for his poor performances on the pitch. The Arsenal captain cupped his ears while hurling swear words at his own fans, a symbolic moment that reflected the disaster that was the Emery era at Arsenal. At the time that Arsenal's ship was being drowned by Unai Emery, Mikel Arteta was at Manchester City, learning under the tutelage of one of the best managers in the world, Pep Guardiola. When Mikel Arteta took over as manager in December of 2019, he brought new hope to the club. Arteta guided Arsenal to an FA Cup win in its first season. While their league performances were still uneven, with the team ending up in 8th place in the Premier League for both the 2020 and 2021 season, there was a visible structure in place. You could see what kind of football Arteta was trying to play. Playing from the back with quick passes leading to transition, getting guys in the box, trying to score lots of goals. But more importantly, Arteta made some bold moves to get rid of players that he felt were hindering the development of the club. Aubameyang, Arsenal's top goal scorer, was controversially stripped of the captaincy following a disciplinary breach.
And we have decided as a club that he is no longer our captain.
He was then sent on loan to Barcelona and never returned to Arsenal. Even though at the time, Arsenal were struggling to score goals, Arteta knew that he had made the right decision for the long-term growth of the club. After getting rid of players that didn't fit his system like Ozil, Bellerin, and Lacazette, Arteta began to bring in the exact players he wanted. Pretty much all of his signings at the time were ridiculed, but when you look back now, all of those players have a specific role in his system. When Ben White was signed for Arsenal in July of 2021, people thought it was an overpay, but he's been the best right back in the league in the 2024 season. His defensive solidity was always visible. I mean, at the end of the day, this was a guy that can play center back as well, but now he's even pushing up more as a right back and even adding goals to his game. Gabriel was one of Arteta's first 5 signings of the club. His development has been ridiculous, forming a defensive wall with Saliba. At just 26 years old, the Brazilian hasn't even hit his prime yet. We've seen most defenders tend to mature more with age. Saliba and Gabriel, along with Rice, are bringing back the physicality and athleticism that made the Gunners so dominant in the early 2000s. Arsenal haven't been able to replace Patrick Vieira for ages. That holding midfielder role has been absent for decades. While Declan Rice is clearly no Patrick Vieira, he's about as good as you can get in today's market for a holding midfielder. Great on the ball, fantastic athlete who is superb at winning the ball back and can even come up with clutch goals. Think about it, he's been so good that nobody brings up his price tag. In August of 2021, Arteta made arguably his best ever signing after he convinced Martin Odegaard to leave Real Madrid to join his project at Arsenal. He is now the captain of the side and one of the best midfielders in the Premier League. 15 goals and 7 assists last year, along with 8 goals and 8 assists this year. The Norwegian is the face of the Arteta era. Trossard, Jorginho, Tomiyasu, even Kai Havertz all were criticized at the time of their signing. I remember people clowning Arsenal, saying that they missed out on Mudryk because they went for Trossard for a lower price instead. And now that you can see, Trossard is 10 times the player that Mudryk is. Then when Jorginho joined, every Chelsea fan was saying that he's washed, but the guy's been an excellent midfielder whenever he's been called up. Even Raya was seen as an unnecessary signing considering how much Arteta had spent for Ramsdale, who had done pretty well in the 2023 season. All of these signings have ended up helping Arsenal in some way as they push to lift the Premier League title. Arteta didn't just rely on new signings, he also developed existing players. Bukayo Saka started out as a left back and is now one of the best players in the Premier League. He is phenomenal, and honestly, at worst, he's the second best right winger in the world. And based on Salah's recent form, Saka might be taking over that number 1 spot pretty soon. He was the PFA Young Player of the Year for the 2022-2023 season, getting 15 goals and 11 assists in all competitions. He showed it was no fluke, as he got 19 goals and 14 assists in the following season. Saka is about as close as Arsenal has ever gone to getting a Thierry Henry-esque player. Someone who is the face of the club, considered one of the best in the world, and who embodies what the club stands for.
I think he represents this club in the best possible way.
Not saying he will be as good as Thierry Henry, but just keep in mind, at 22 years old, Thierry Henry had just joined Arsenal. Meanwhile, at the same age, Saka already has 2 Team of the Season worthy campaigns under his belt. You guys remember Xhaka, the guy who was booed off the pitch by his own fans? Well, Arteta persuaded him to stay at the club, and the Swiss midfielder was pivotal to Arsenal's success in the 2023 season. I would argue they still haven't been able to replicate what he was doing in that left center mid role. In 2023, Arsenal completely outperformed their expectations. Haters will say that they bottled the league title, but frankly, nobody ever expected them to even be in that position. Maybe if Saliba stays healthy in the business end of the season, Arsenal are crowned champions. Who knows? But the 2024 season has been a reminder that the previous year was no fluke. Arsenal are once again in the title race, going toe-to-toe with Pep's Manchester City side, one of the greatest teams this league has ever seen. Despite the loss to Bayern Munich, Arsenal had made a push in the Champions League that fans hadn't seen in years. The Gunners are now so tactically flexible, able to press their opponent and keep the ball, but now have the ability to get together and defend as a unit. Not many teams can go to the Etihad and keep Manchester City from scoring a single goal. Mikel Arteta has done wonders for the team and has brought the fans closer to the football club than ever before. They're not just trying to compete, but rather to rebuild the entire culture of the London Giants. To see how another massive English club is also going through a rebuild, check out this video on Manchester United.